Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to our first ever video of our little mini series we got going on here, Draft Class Digest. I'm here with Fred. I'm here with Troy. We're going to break down the 2017 draft class. You might be asking why start with 2017. It seems like right now this 2017 draft class is balling out this year. So I figured why not get after it. So before we begin, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Tell some friends. Here's how these layouts are going to go. We're going to have 8 different draft classes we're going to be presenting through 8 different videos. And on the 9th video of this mini series, we'll have a little tournament style elimination bracket to determine who we believe is the best draft class of all time. But without further ado, boys, you ready to get right into it?
Let's get
Yes, sir.
All right. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to look at where this draft class was coming into the league, where they currently are, and then where we think they'll end up all time. So Fred, you're kind of our recruiting class guy when it comes in the channel. So why don't you tell us a little bit about this draft class in terms of high school and college?
Yeah, man. So if you're looking at this is the 2016 class. So this is me and Caleb's graduating year from high school. You look at your top 6. You got some big names: Josh Jackson, who of course was taken number 4 overall; Harry Giles, who was number 2 ranked recruit. This is all 24/7. Big time prospect out of Oak Hill. Went to Duke. Didn't really pan out, but he still went to the draft. Thought he could, do more in the league. We see how that worked out. Lonzo Ball coming out of Chino Hills, of course, UCLA. We saw what he was. Absolute playmaker. He was a consistent top 5 pick. I think without injury, he's definitely showed that. Jason Tatum at 4, coming out of Chaminade, St. Louis. Went to Duke. You saw the flashes. I thought he was the best prospect. He ended up going, number 3 to Boston. So I thought he should have been number 1, but that's besides the point. And then the number 1 pick, of course, is Markelle Fultz. Went to UW out of DeMatha Catholic. Didn't really see it. I saw the scoring potential. I saw the shooting, but I still thought Jason Tatum was a better prospect. And I thought the next guy, De'Aaron Fox, was also a better prospect, of course, from Texas. Went to Kentucky. We saw what he was. Absolute freak, man. I mean, dude was lightning fast in high school. You saw it in college. Easily, I think, the fastest player we've seen since John Wall. So, I mean, you're looking at your top 6 there, not bad. Then you throw in guys like Dennis Smith Jr., Jonathan Isaac, Van Adebayo, Malik Monk. I mean, you go further than that, Jared Allen, TJ Leaf down the board. This recruiting class was easily one of the best we've seen. And then you see it come into a draft class. So I think there's no disconnect there. I think they both flow perfectly together. Why that 2017 draft class is so talented, because that 2016 recruiting class is also very, very talented.
Yeah, Troy, for college with this draft class, I think it's pretty interesting. You had 3 of the better players all go to UK together: De'Aaron Fox, Bam Adebayo, and Malik Monk. Being a UK fan, what did you see from those 3 in particular, and that you saw that you would think would translate going into the league?
Yeah, so Fred kind of already touched base with like De'Aaron Fox's quickness, explosiveness.
Mm-hmm.
You saw him go toe-to-toe with a guy that was picked above him in Lonzo Ball. Yeah. Outplayed him. I'm pretty sure we played them twice, if I'm not mistaken,
twice.
Once in the tournament, and he outplayed him twice. And then Malik Monk, he went off for 47 at Kentucky. I mean, we literally got to watch this kid be a human flamethrower.
Yeah.
Any instant bucket, anytime, any place. And then Bam, I mean, just that do-it-all, defensive-minded, athletic big man that cleaned up the boards. He scored. He was athletic, and he also was kind of the anchor for us. A lot of people, I know Fred's highlighted this before. I think you have as well in some of our Kentucky videos. This is arguably one of the funnest and just easily lovable Kentucky teams that we've had during the Calipari era. So I love this group of kids that came through Kentucky. And as we dive deeper into the draft class, a lot of good talent.
Yeah, you had those 3 playing together. You had Lonzo Ball and TJ Leaf, like Fred mentioned, playing together. You had Jason Tatum and Harry Giles playing together. You had Josh Jackson out of Kansas. I mean, you had a lot of big names all across the board that you were seeing go up against. Luke Kennard was also at Duke at the time with Jason Tatum. So you had a lot of guys that were going up against each other throughout the college basketball season. So you were seeing top talent play each other throughout the year. You had De'Aaron Fox go up against Lonzo Ball twice and show him up. I remember watching the second game of that year where he just lit him up in the tournament, and just, I was sold ever since then. there was a lot of questions. So I pulled from an article from 2017, the night of the draft, from Washington Post, from 10 Bontemps. You look at guys like Markelle Fultz. The consensus was he was going to come in right away and just be a really good starter for the 76ers team. And as we know, as it turned out, that obviously wasn't the case, due to injury and due to everything else. But they thought that he would be a perfect fit with that young core at the time. You had to think Ben Simmons was still, had Ben Simmons even played yet? I don't even think he played. You had Joel Embiid, who had hardly played at all. So Markelle Fultz, there was a lot of hype with him, and everybody thought right from the beginning that it was going to be a perfect fit. You had Lonzo Ball, who everybody thought was going to fit in really, really well with LA. And I think he showed signs. Troy, you can attest to this more than either one of us, but like there were moments where it looked really, really solid for Lonzo Ball, and there were other points it was really, really ugly. What were the struggles with him early on that, what were you seeing early on from him?
Well, you're kind of seeing it in a more, for the kids or for the people watching the NBA now, you're seeing it now with a team like the Warriors, where their young guys are coming into a situation, at the time LeBron was starting to come around and it kind of stunted Lonzo's development with the Lakers, like you're expecting these young guys to learn on the fly and try to be in these huge playoff atmospheres super, super young. And that can be a hard situation. And with Lonzo, his shooting struggles super early were really tough. Obviously now he's starting to progress, but at the beginning of his career, his shot was funky. It was really ugly. With his dad at the time, his dad was super vocal with Luke Walton, just kind of always on Luke Walton's case about his rotations and the way he was playing Lonzo, because Lonzo wasn't closing games for us. And that was a huge topic of conversation in the Ball household, I guess. So, a lot of factors weighed into that the LA kid coming into LA compared to Magic. There were people all over the place with Lonzo Ball, one of my favorite prospects I've ever really dove into and gotten to, look into as I got older. But yeah, Lonzo Ball kind of thrown to the fire, didn't really respond too well. And it was really unfair what he was put into, in my opinion.
Yeah. A lot of questions with him, but at the same time, there were a lot of people really hoping that things would work out for him. Some other questions we see with these top talent, Jason Tatum, there was a debate, weirdly enough, Fred, Josh Jackson or Jason Tatum. And I mean, hindsight's 2020. But, I guess at the time it made sense. You had Josh Jackson, who had all the athleticism, who was a freak athlete. Jason Tatum, who was probably a little bit better of a basketball player. But looking back on it now, it just kind of seems absurd. You've got Jason Tatum who's sitting at front runner for MVP, and Josh Jackson, who I don't even think is in the league right now.
No, but I mean, you saw it at Kansas, though. I mean, it was an absolute freak. You saw the defensive versatility. It was everything you wanted in an athletic wing that every team needs and every wants. He just didn't put it together. He had a really hard time finding his shot. Just ugly, man. And I feel bad for him because he was such a talented prospect, but it just a lot of the times it just doesn't work out.
Notes from him for the draft night where he should be able to step in right away and help compete for a young Suns team, because this is when the Suns were still pretty bad. And then you look at Jason Tatum, like the notes were he needs to put on weight, develop a long range jump shot. They don't at the time. The Celtics still had Isaiah Thomas, so like the ball didn't need to be in a rookie Jason Tatum's hands. But I think obviously he's answered all those questions, and he stepped in and arguably been the best player up to this point. And he answered all those questions. And you look like a guy like Donovan Mitchell. The questions were, he's too small to play a shooting guard. So what's he going to be? He's not a point guard. And he's the second best shooting guard in the league right now. Like all these guys answering questions from the beginning and proving people wrong. You had Donovan Mitchell step up. I mean, that first season in Utah, he led the Jazz past Paul George and Russell Westbrook in the first round. So you had all these guys right away answering questions and proving people wrong. So I think that's really important to look back on, because as good as these guys are right now, it all started somewhere, and from the beginning a lot of these guys were here and ready to prove people wrong. So we look at them from where they were. Let's take a look at where this draft class is currently right now. I'm gonna ask you two. Jason Tatum obviously is the best player to come out of this class. Where do you guys rank him as far as like 1 to 10, 1 to 15, as far as like in the league right now?
I think he's top 5.
Ooh.
I think he makes the argument. I think he makes the argument for sure.
For the guy that claims that Jason Tatum isn't the best player on his team,
That's true.
That is unbelievable praise that I cannot believe I'm hearing.
Well, Jaylen Brown's top 3, so I don't know.
Oh, here we go. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, I love Jason Tatum. I have from the very beginning. Just his innate scoring ability. Obviously, his ties with Kobe. Guys like him don't come around very often when it comes to just their knack to score the ball. Like we can look through some of these classes where we thought maybe there was a guy, but very few, can step onto the scene like Tatum and kind of. I don't want to say he surprised people, but people knew he was, great or had the potential to be great. But I think he's kind of.
He keeps getting better and better. Which
He's never staled out. Like you can almost argue that you're starting to look like is De'Aaron Fox reached his ceiling? Yeah. Has Kyle Kuzma reached his ceiling? Right. Has Donovan Mitchell potentially reached his ceiling? But you look at a guy like Jason Tatum, and you're like, this dude has all NBA historically potential. Where there might not be a ceiling for Jason Tatum. Like his body, the way he plays,
it's within mindset that like he could be the best player in the league one day.
Yeah, and you can't say that about anybody else in this class. Like I don't care what you try to do to convince me. I don't think there's another dude on this list that you could say. Obviously, hindsight, like we always say, is 20/20, but that you can say has the potential to be, at their peak, can be the best player in the NBA because he has the body, the skill. Everything that you need, the length, the athleticism. Like he has a mix of literally everything that you need to be a top, like you said, best player in the league.
Yeah. Jason Tatum went third. Lonzo Ball, Markelle Fultz went above him. Two guys that like are just good point guards in today's league. Lonzo Ball.
Boston traded down, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, they did. I think they had the first pick.
They did.
Traded with Philadelphia because Philadelphia wanted Markelle Fultz. Yeah. So Jason Tatum arguably goes number 1. I think it's safe to say Donovan Mitchell goes number 2, and he's sitting right now clearly the second best player in the league. He came out fiery from the start. He won Rookie of the Year that year, I'm pretty sure. That was like the year him and Ben Simmons got into it because Ben Simmons technically wasn't a rookie, but was, whatever. This draft class has 4 All-Stars up to this point. Jason Tatum, Donovan Mitchell, Bam Adebayo, and Jarrett Allen. As we'll see, you look down this draft, there's key guys in the league today that go, as far down as like 51st overall. This draft class is very, very deep, Fred. 56 out of 60 guys have played in the NBA, which is pretty rare. I was preparing for another draft class we're going to get ready to do, and the number was like 35 out of 60. So, it's 56 out of 60 is very, very rare to do. Fred, we're going to get through these names here in a minute. What are some guys that, aren't at the top of this draft that have stood out to you up to this point, especially this season? I know there's your guys that comes along here in a little bit, but
you just look down the list and a guy that sticks out, Thomas Bryant, Isaiah Hartenstein plays good minutes. Samuel Ojeleye, he's worked a couple. Kyle Kuzma down the board. Kyle Kuzma's at all like an all-star at points, in Washington this year. Josh Hart at 30. I think the best guard rebounder in the NBA right now. Got to talk about my boy. We haven't even talked about Larry Bird yet.
That's true.
We haven't mentioned, and he went 7th, out of Arizona. Luke Kennard gives you good minutes. Just got John Collins, Dylan Brooks, like OG Anunoby, a guy who I think should be an all-star this year. Depoy so far this year. Derek White plays really good minutes. Like Tony Bradley's gotten run. If Jonathan Isaac can stay healthy, we know what he can do. Like just the quality. It might not be all-star level quality, but there's some guys that play key roles on good teams, and it's really cool to see, man. Monty Morris even at 51 down the board. Edmund Sumner's playing well. Like I could just keep going and going. And
I'm glad you mentioned Lauri Markkanen.
Insane.
Lauri Markkanen was drafted by Minnesota, but this was the night that Jimmy Butler was traded to the Timberwolves, and that seemed like that was going to be the main storyline from this the takeaway of the draft was Jimmy Butler's traded to Minnesota. What comes out of that? Lauri Markkanen goes to Chicago, plays pretty well. I think people don't really understand how good he kind of was in Chicago at times. But, as we see now, he's stepping in to his own in Utah. Out of those 56 players that have played up to this point, I kind of jotted down some names that have been notable players. This draft class's 6th season. So I went with guys that have played at least 4 seasons in the league, have been on a roster, and have kind of, shown some help to win games or whatnot. So Markelle Fultz, Lonzo Ball, Jason Tatum, Josh Jackson, De'Aaron Fox, Jonathan Isaac, who technically hasn't played 4 years because he's been hurt, but I still kept him down there just because I do think when he comes back, he can help this Magic team. Lauri Markkanen, Frank Ntilikina, Dennis Smith Jr., Zach Collins, who Portland traded to move up. I'm pretty sure they traded 2 first-round picks to move up to get Zach Collins. And if you look at guys that went directly after him, like Donovan Mitchell, Bam Adebayo, John Collins, Jared Allen, OG Anunoby, like Portland kind of, screwed up big time there. But
ain't the first time they did it.
Yeah, right. After Zach Collins, it was Malik Monk, Luke Kennard, Donovan Mitchell, Bam Adebayo, Justice Jackson, Justin Patton, DJ Wilson, TJ Leaf, John Collins, Terrence Ferguson, who was a freak athlete out of he didn't go to college. He was an overseas player. I remember all that.
Prep school.
Yeah, Jared Allen, OG Anunoby, Kyle Kuzma, Tony Bradley, Derek White, Josh Hart, Frank Jackson, Devon Reed, Wes Iwundu, Frank Mason III, Semi Ojeleye, Jordan Bell, Dwayne Bacon, Thomas Bryant, Isaiah Hartenstein, Damian Dotson, Dylan Brooks, Sterling Brown, Sindarius Thornwell, Vlatko Konchar, Monty Morris, and Edmund Sumner. I mean, I'm out of breath. Like, that is a lot of guys who are playing good basketball for good teams up to this point this season. I mean, you look at this draft class, and we can kind of transition here to where we think they will be. This draft class, I mean, you look at the guys that right now this season that are playing really well: Jason Tatum, Donovan Mitchell, De'Aaron Fox, Bam Adebayo, Lauri Markkanen, John Collins, Jared Allen, OG Anunoby, Kyle Kuzma, Derek White, Josh Hart, Dylan Brooks, and Monty Morris. This draft class is very, very deep, and we see a lot of guys who are still in the league today. Like, there's names I left off that played for 2-3 years and maybe had a couple, maybe had a nice little run. But we can transition this into where we think this draft class will be, because right now, after these names I just read off, 1 through 60, this is one of the deepest draft classes we have ever seen. So I'll transition this to where do we think this deep draft class will end up all time. For Troy, I'll ask you first, especially with these top guys. You've got guys that I think name value wise will last a long time, but you've got guys deeper on that aren't going to be brought up but are valuable in today's league. So where do you see this draft class ending up all time?
Yeah, so whenever you look at the all time, there needs to be an all-timer, right? Whenever you're trying to get into a class and where you rank them. And we've already kind of hinted at Jason Tatum potentially being an all-time player. So you have that potential with that. And then also you want, your all-stars, potentially some Hall of Famers thrown in there. And I think we have that. I think we have a few guys like a Bam Adebayo that could be a Hall of Famer one day. Donovan Mitchell could easily be a Hall of Famer one day. Potentially De'Aaron Fox. Potentially.
It'd have to go real well for him, but
he'd have to start making a little noise in the in Sacramento, some playoff runs, and then you need, like I've already said, some depth, the all-star pieces, the good role players that have sustainable careers, and you have that all across this class. Kyle Kuzma, OG Anunoby, John Collins, like the depth of this class is unbelievable. Like the talent that was picked, like 45th, Dylan Brooks, 51st, Monty Morris, like Vlatko Konchar, the 49th, like you said. Like there's just so many, and Edmund Sumner, who's playing big minutes for the Brooklyn Nets this year, like, and Thomas Bryant at 42nd. Like you could almost make an argument that the round 2 of this class could be better than some classes as a whole. Like maybe not in terms of star value, but in terms of NBA careers.
Right.
Like this round 2 has some dudes that you're like, man, he's still playing. Oh, he's still playing.
Right.
He's still playing. Like they've strung together some good a good career. In terms of all time, I don't want to put a number on it yet because we're going to get to that. But I think they're up there, man. What do you think, Fred?
I think definitely depth-wise, it's probably going to be the best, in my opinion. Star power-wise, I see one Hall of Famer. I think Jason Tatum's got to be that guy. I think will be the only guy to win MVP out of this list. I mean, you look at other drafts like the 96, 83, like you just have multiple Hall of Famers. 96, you got Kobe, Steve Nash, Allen Iverson. Like they have the heavy set, couple, 3, 4 guys that are, Hall of Fame already. But depth-wise, I mean, 2017 class knocks these out of the water because, outside of the main guys, you don't have a lot. I mean, you can look through a whole second round of one of these drafts and not recognize one name. So
yeah, it's very rare where you can look at, like Caleb said, 56 names that played in the game.
That's just guys that were drafted. There's 2 names. Chris Boucher and Luke Cornett weren't drafted. And we see them
still playing.
Like Chris Boucher's been playing for the Raptors for a couple years now, and has some nice moments. Like Luke Cornett, I didn't think there would be a spot for him in the league, and he's found a home here in Boston. So I mean, that's 2 guys. There's usually guys with in different draft classes. There's usually more undrafted names that kind of hit this, like have more dominant roles. But like this is how good this draft class is. That like guys that are pretty solid in the league now didn't even get drafted. Because a lot of times it's like, oh, that was just a bad GM move picking up somebody, whatever. But it's like this, for this case, it's like, Luke Cornett, maybe he shouldn't have been drafted, especially at the time. But it's like this draft class, like we've said, 1 through 60. I'll ask you to, will this be at least, you could say top 5 draft class of all time. You could say, overrated, whatever. I think nonetheless, we're looking at one of the most lovable draft classes we'll ever see. And in terms of that, I mean, you look at like you can't really sit there and point out a bust other than none of the top guys, like Josh Jackson might be, is probably the biggest bust you have up to this point. But like Josh Jackson had a nice little role there for a little bit. Like you look at other busts, like Sam Bowie was a complete bust. Greg Oden, due to injuries and whatnot, a bust. But like, Lonzo Ball and Markelle Fultz, they've battled a lot of injuries. They can't really help that, but they're playing, like they're still playing. When you get to like the first real bust in my eyes is a guy like Harry Giles or a guy like maybe Justin Patton, but even still, like 1 through 60 guys that have played and will play for a long time. In my opinion, at least, this is one of the best and one of the most lovable draft classes we'll see throughout this series, at least. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah.
I agree.
Just seconding your point, like just filtering it off of games played, like only the player, like if we just wanted to say if you've played 50 or more games, like the only players below 50, there's only 2 that were drafted in the top 25 or 3 that were drafted in the top 25 that played less than 50 games. Yeah. So like it's not like there were a ton of whiffs. Like obviously there's these hindsight, like we always say, hindsight's 20/20. So of course we can nitpick TJ Leaf and DJ Wilson right before John Collins. Like there's those little things where it's like, you pick TJ Leaf, then DJ Wilson went, and then we have John Collins. So, I mean, there's those little nitpicks that you can make to be like, maybe they flopped there, but there's no real, like you said, Anthony Bennett, Sam Bowie, those types of guys where you're like, you flopped. Like you complete, or Darko Milicic before, like those types of whiffs. So I agree.
I like, I wanted to start off with this draft class because right now, especially these top guys are balling out, and they're, I wouldn't say the face of the league, but they're the core group of the league, a lot of these guys. And so, Fred, anything you want to hit on before we get out of here?
Yeah, I mean, I guess just the freaking Markelle Fultz, I still think he's a bust in my opinion. I didn't see they went 9-22, and he went 9-22 in college. Coming out, didn't love that. I featured a Washington team with Matisse Thybulle as well. I didn't see it. Just my 2 cents. I don't know why he was the top prospect on everybody's board. Again, I thought it was Jason Tatum by a mile, but
let's end on a fun question here. Is there one guy throughout this draft that you look at the top guys? Is there a guy that goes farther down that you guys like just really have a lot of value in, but you can't really explain why? Like, is there somebody out there that you're like you root for every time you see him, and it's kind of like he's not that great of an NBA, or he's like an okay NBA player? Are there any of those guys for you?
So 2, I'm gonna give you 3 names. Two obviously are obvious because huge Laker fan. Josh Hart, I will never not root for that guy.
Yeah.
That dude's just a great NBA grinder. Kyle Kuzma, for obvious reasons, this summer league team was one of the best ever. You know, you throw in Alex Caruso, you throw in those guys. Unbelievable summer league roster that we were able to throw together. But then there's one really weirdo, Tyler Dorsey. I was a huge fan of his out of Oregon. I thought he was a stud. He could put the ball in the bucket in college. So like I saw him get signed, I think at the beginning of this year.
He's on Dallas.
Yeah, I saw him get signed at the beginning of this year, but just a guy that I just kind of kept an eye on, and I enjoy watching him hoop anytime he's out there.
Fred, you got a guy you cling on to?
Oh, it's OG Anunoby.
Yeah.
I mean, he went, where'd he go? Late 23rd, first round. I loved him in Indiana.
Didn't he tear his ACL or MCL or something?
Yeah,
he's battled injuries nonstop.
Poor guy. I love that kid too. He's a gamer.
He's from England, so that's cool. Another guy, I loved Edmund Sumner coming out of Xavier.
Edmund Sumner was my guy.
Yeah, especially being close to Kentucky, and you are in the northern Kentucky area.
Yeah, Edmund Sumner is my guy. He's got like one of the best AAU programs in the nation. I don't know if you guys have seen anything like of his AAU. It's like they're freshmen now, and I know the head coach of that AAU team, and I know a couple of the kids and whatnot. So it's like I've always just kind of rooted for Edmund Sumner, just weirdly enough because of the correlations and whatnot. But
yeah, and Malik Monk's definitely another one I always root for, just because of the career he had at Kentucky.
Right. I like Semi Ojeleye too. That dude's just jacked.
That dude's he's got two pythons. Pythons.
Yeah, that dude's
That's
jacked.
an actual weird one.
Yeah. But Fred, why don't you get us out of here?
Yeah, hey guys, thank you so much for tuning in to this draft class digest. Stay tuned, we have more coming out. And at the end, like the guy said, we'll rank them. We'll go even deeper. But guys, don't be a star. Don't be a superstar. Change the game. Be an X Factor. See you guys next time. God bless.